So there's a variety of ways of selecting things in AutoCAD. We've talked about several of them, but it'd be good to practice a little tiny bit. So what we want to do is we want to get firmly in our brain, establish the idea how to pick and what kind of pick to use when we're trying to select objects, and of course how to deselect objects. So just to review what we've discussed up to this point, you can pick objects by directly clicking on them. That's a pick selection. Now, of course, if you have 10,000 objects, picking on them one at a time would probably be the slowest way to get your job done, right? But that is a valid method for selecting. Generally, you have to click on the lines of the drawing entities. Clicking inside the entity or next to the entity is not going to produce any kind of selection. Our second method for selecting is to create a window. And a window is created by left-clicking out an open space, releasing the left click, moving to the right. And when we do this, we create a box or a selection window that is shaded blue. And what we're going to see is as we go across objects that are completely within the window are going to be selected if we give that second click. So here only the first two are completely in. Now the second set is completely in. Now the third set is completely in. And when I click, everything that was completely inside the shaded section gets selected. Our other option is to create a crossing window. So we'll click out here in empty space, left click, we'll release the left click, and we'll start moving to the left. Now you see the window is a little bit different, right? The window has a green shade to it. Also, the outline of the window is not solid, it's dashed. So this is called a crossing window. What's the difference between a window and a crossing window? Well, observe that as we go across objects, even if they're not totally inside the window, even if just a little bit is inside the window, it gets selected. Now, if we left click an empty space, and this time hold down the left click, and move our mouse, we're going to create something called a lasso. And what we see is the behavior is kind of like a window, meaning objects have to be totally within the boundary of the lasso to be selected. When we let go, those objects that were inside the lasso get selected. If we go from the right side of the screen to the left, though, we'll create a different kind of lasso. This would be a crossing lasso. And then letting go of the left mouse gets everything selected that was even partially within the boundary of the lasso. So we have direct pick, we have window, we have crossing window, we have lasso, and we have crossing lasso. And you would think, well, that's plenty, right? What else could we possibly want to do? Well, we're going to want to deselect things occasionally. So to deselect, it is hold down the shift and then select the object. And as we select it, it becomes deselected. Now, holding down shift, you can either pick to deselect, or you can make a window to deselect, or a crossing window to deselect, or a lasso to deselect, or a crossing lasso to deselect. There are two other ways of selecting, and they're a little more advanced, but they're good to know, so let's discuss them really quick. One way is with a fence, and another way is with a polygon. So what does that mean? We're going to start the erase command. Right, we'll be prompted, what objects do you want to erase? So of course we have those same methods of selecting: picking, windowing, crossing windowing, lassoing, and crossing lasso. Well, there are a couple of other ways of selecting. So one way is called a fence. So how does that work? I'll start the erase command. It says select objects, and I will type F and hit enter. Now a fence, if you're looking down on the command line, it says pick the first point for your fence line. So basically you do is you draw a line through the objects you want to select. Every time I left click, it's like adding another segment to this selection fence. When I'm done, I'll hit enter, and you can see all of those have been selected. And since I'm using the erase command, if I hit enter, they're all erased. Okay, so fence is another selection method. The other method for selecting, more of an intermediate method, is using a polygon. WP, we're going to draw a shape. Click, 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 click. And that polygon, because I went from left to right, is a window polygon, a WP. If we hit enter, the objects totally inside that polygon got selected. And enter again, completes the command. And then the final way to select, never realized there were so many ways to select, right? Is to make a crossing polygon, a CP, enter. And that's going to ask you again for the first point of your polygon, and the second point, and the third point, the fourth point, the fifth point, and because it's crossing, anything inside of it gets selected. And then we hit enter, those objects are selected, we hit enter again and they're gone. So that was 8 different methods for selecting objects, and which one is the best one to use? Well, it just depends on what you're doing, right? How much you are trying to select at one time. Well, actually, you know what? There is a 9th way of selecting. And if we clicked on the erase tool, and it says, what do you want to select? You could type all. ALL, enter, and now everything is selected. So 9 different methods for selecting, depending on what you're doing, how many things you need to select, how close they are together. And you have to make the determination which of these methods is the easiest to accomplish your goal. What I'd like you to do with this, now that we've practiced a little and I've demonstrated those, is I'd like you to look a little bit further down. If we pan the drawing down by holding the wheel on the wheel mouse and then moving the cursor, is I'd like you to see I've got a number of little exercises down here for you to do. Exercises 1 through 8, and they involve you using these different methods. And a good tool to use while doing this is, why don't you use the erase tool? And use the erase tool and then complete the action that you're being asked to do. The first one is to pick select the blue circle. The second one is to pick select multiple objects, the 2 blue circles. The third step, window select 6 blue circles. Window select the blue circles, and of course this is going to be a little trickier because you might have to make 2 windows, right? Because we can add to our selection set by windowing, and then windowing again, and even windowing again, and again, because every time we click, we are building a selection set. Number 5 involves using the lasso to lasso the blue circles. Number 6, selecting the blue circles with a window, but then going in and deselecting the green circles. Seven, selecting the blue circles using a fence. Right, so picking a start point and then drawing that little invisible line through several objects. And then our last step, selecting the blue circles using a window polygon